Hello, Denise. How are you doing today?
I am good. I am good. It is so good to be with you today.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to meet you, Denise. Our viewers, today we are joined by an amazing personality in the industry. She's no other person than Denise Miller. She's the founder of DLM Strategy. Today, we're going to look at what most teams don't, what's going on in industry in leadership, training, and development. She's an icon in that arena. So today, before we go on, let's look at what's going on. Most teams often don't fail because of lack of talent. They fail because of poor communication and unclear leadership. Today, we are diving into what it really takes to build high-performing team and impactful leaders with someone who has over 50 years of leadership experience across corporate, academia, and entrepreneurship. Today, we are going. The person is no other person than Denise Miller. Denise, you're welcome.
Thank you. It is so good to be here to meet with you today. I'm excited about being here with you today.
Yeah, great. So, Denise, before we dive in, this is how the podcast is going to go. It's going to go in three parts. We're going to look at your background and the industry trend you're seeing. Then we discuss the current challenge and the vision you want for DLM in the next 12 months. And finally, we wrap up by exploring any necessary step if it makes any sense. Does that sound good?
That's wonderful.
Okay, viewers, I always want to remind our viewers and even our guests, it's not an interview. It's a relaxed conversation. You know, we follow where the conversation goes, and it's really slated for 30, 45 minutes max. It depends on how the guests want to take it. However, it's a relaxed conversation. We're going to learn from our insight. Being in the industry for 50 years, that's for me, it's a library to draw from, and I'm ready. So, viewers, I know all of us will also be ready, no matter how, whatever is going, that quality experience is something that we want listening to. So, today, before we start, the first question we're going to ask you is to tell us about your background and how it fits into the bigger picture of your DLM strategy company.
Okay.
Yeah.
My background is really very varied. I will start out this way. I did not start out to be a business person. When I went into college, I wanted to be a textile designer. I
Okay.
used to make all my own clothes. I have literally been sewing for more than 60 years.
Sweet.
And I'll explain to you why that matters.
Mm.
I ended up going to an art college, a very well known art college here in the United States, Pratt Institute, and found that although I had great sense of color, I could not become a textile designer because I can't draw. I can't. And so I did take my fashion classes. But I also took merchandising classes, which was
Mm.
the equivalent of a minor in business.
Yeah.
And when after I had done a couple of internships in fashion retail, I found out that I hated it, and I was able to get a position in what was at that time, 52 years ago, the largest and one of the most well known and most progressive natural gas utilities in the country. And I started there. I went into industry when there were very few people of color
Mm.
in management, and most of the time I was the only woman in the room in management. And it was a very difficult transition for me to make. But thankfully, I had a mother who was a corporate person in that she was an executive secretary. In fact, my mother was determined that I would not be hired as a secretary, so she would not let me type. Okay. Yeah, I did not learn how to start to type until I was 39 years old.
Oh my
My
God.
mother, I always used to joke when my mother was alive that half my degree belonged to her because she typed all of my papers. But my mother knew corporate well enough to know that if I went in with the ability to type, that I was going to be placed as a secretary. And I met other women along my career, and that's exactly what happened to them, whether they were women of color or not. And so my mama was very wise.
Yeah.
Um, uh, God gave me wisdom because, of course, because I was female, because I was a woman of color, they
Mm.
wanted to put me in public relations and marketing. And I felt, I don't, well, I do know where it came from, but I did not at the time know. The wisdom came to me that if I went into public relations or marketing and anything negative happened economically with the company, that I would be one of the first to be fired.
Mm.
So I told them, no, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be in operations. And so I ended up working in operations for my first 16 years with the company. I was in the billing department. I was in the service department. I was a manager of district offices. I did quality control.
Wow.
I did all the things that an person would do.
Mm.
And so when I finally did get to the marketing department, I knew exactly how the company ran, how things fit together, and I had a lot of allies on the operations side. They used to hate marketing people,
Wow.
but because I was their baby,
Mm.
they helped whenever I needed help. So that's it. So that started. I felt to leave the company during a merger. At that
Mm.
point, I was 45 years old,
Okay.
and started my first business. I wrote I wrote a beauty workbook because I was all into beauty and fashion,
Mhm.
and that was always my thing. And that didn't go so well. I didn't take advice well, quite
Mm.
honestly. And I ended up doing a lot of odd jobs and landed in luxury retail.
Mm.
I ended up using my degree, my fashion degree, as a personal shopper for Nordstrom,
Mhm. So,
and and that worked out very well for a couple of years. And most of my clients, because of my business background, were
mhm.
people in finance.
Awesome.
Unfortunately, 9/11 happened. And I have to say, September 12th was one of the worst days of my life. I sat at my desk with a box of tissues and called each of my clients and left messages because I had no idea whether they were even alive. Thankfully, I got return calls from all but one. So I was blessed with that. And right after that, I left Nordstrom and I ended up with Mercedes Benz.
Okay.
And and I did not sell cars. I sold service because I happen to know a lot
Mm.
about what goes on under the engine of car, under
Mhm.
the hood of cars, with engines and car maintenance and all of that.
Yeah.
So I did that for a while. And as I started doing that, I was also teaching an adult education course at one of the colleges of the City University of New York,
Mm.
Queens College, and they invited me to teach on the business faculty, business communications,
Wow.
and I did that for 17 years.
Oh, great.
And as the pandemic started, I
Mm.
had some lung challenges that were not going to allow me to be on campus. And
Yeah.
so it was at that point that the college decided not to reappoint me.
Mhm.
And at that point, I decided that I would become a John Maxwell team member.
Awesome.
And I started my John Maxwell business. So that it's a long
Oh,
story.
it's sweet.
I'm
It's good.
sorry to take so long, but it shows you exactly how I went, and the why I call it my company DLM Strategies. DLM, obviously my
Mhm.
initials,
Mhm.
but we have talents and gifts
Mhm.
and skills,
Mhm.
and so often we see ourselves as just as they would say in the business world, a one-trick pony, that we can only do one thing.
Yeah.
But the reality is we can take the same set of talents and
Mhm.
skills,
Yeah.
and we can use them in different industries if
Mhm.
we just back away
Yeah.
and not look at things so myopically.
You're right.
And that was what I was forced to do. I
Mhm.
never considered it reinventing myself, but a friend of mine, a very dear friend of mine, has said to me for years that you're the only person I know who constantly reinvents themselves.
Yeah.
But you take the best basic skills,
Mm-hmm.
you learn, you take the experiences that you get in that first position,
Mm-hmm.
and you take all of that to the next position,
Mm-hmm.
and then you take all of that to the next position,
Yeah.
and that is how to grow. The one thing I will say about myself is that I was that pain in the neck kid as a little one who had a
Oh,
lot of questions.
oh yeah.
And I am still that pain in the neck woman who
Okay.
has a lot of questions.
Oh, good.
And have to continually question. You should never take anything
Yeah.
as this is how it must be,
Yeah.
because there's always another way.
Absolutely.
And I've always been willing to learn.
Yeah,
Whether you're
absolutely.
57, 77,
Mm.
there's something I can learn from you.
Yeah. In fact, I can say I really admire you, and I hope that when I get your age, I'll be this active. So let's move on to the first main question. You've had an incredible over 40 years journey. What
Uh-huh.
moment shaped your approach to leadership the most?
Um, I had one when I was in corporate.
Mm-hmm.
I had one gentleman who was at the time the director of the department where I worked.
Yeah.
Uh, I was a supervisor at that time, and he was my director.
Yeah.
And he was a control freak.
Oh my God.
He wanted to control everything, and I am not a person who bends easily to control. And to the point that uh, he didn't give me a nervous breakdown. I almost had a nervous breakdown because I will not let him own that moment
Yeah.
because I didn't realize how to handle him.
Okay.
Thankfully, my pastor, I went to my pastor who was also a very good friend of the family, and I was just like, very upset.
Mm-hmm.
And he said to me, he started asking me about this gentleman. And it turned out that this gentleman had had a career in the military. And the person that I went to for advice started to explain to me about the military mindset and how I was really coming up against his military mindset. And he gave me a set of behaviors to begin to incorporate so that I would be true to myself,
Yeah.
but that I wouldn't continually cause friction.
Mm.
And from that, I learned that we really do need to see from the other person's viewpoint.
Yeah.
And I think that shaped me because I was in the middle. I had people that I led, but I also had someone that I was responsible
Yeah.
to. And because of that, I began, and I've always incorporated that for the many years that followed, to put myself in that other person's shoes, to take off my glasses
Mm-hmm.
and look at life through their glasses.
You're right. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, again, maybe another follow-up is that what led you from corporate leadership into coaching and leadership development?
Well, I always will tell people that because I was actually hired into corporate right out of college to be trained as one of the future higher level corporate leaders. And so I received the best leadership training that you could get at the time.
Mm.
Back in the 1970s. Like I laugh when people talk about Stephen Covey's book and how wonderful it is. I remember when he first published it. In fact, I have my very first edition from all those years ago.
Awesome.
And so I received excellent leadership training. I also got to see some men because, gentlemen, please don't be upset.
Mm-hmm.
But back then, most of my colleagues were men
Okay.
who were not good leaders.
Oh.
And I really, number one, I was always in charge of everything. That's just my personality, even as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And I just began, though, to understand that leadership is so much more than just being in charge.
Yeah.
And that has really shaped my viewpoint of leadership. The fact that we have to speak, we have to listen, we have to make sure that what is being said
Mm-hmm.
by the other person, that we're understanding what they mean.
Awesome.
We also need to make sure that we are grateful.
Yeah.
Because so often leaders feel that, well, I'm do this because I'm the leader. And I used to tell my students, because I taught business communication, so I taught I taught honors business communication. So I was teaching the honors business students in at Queens College,
Mm-hmm.
and I would tell them, never forget that your position is a gift.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
What you have been able to learn is a gift. And one well-placed brick flying off of a building could land you being unable to do any of this.
You're right.
So always, always, always be grateful, listen. Those are the things that really matter.
That's awesome. So we'll go to the next question. You emphasize communication as the backbone of leadership. What are leaders still getting wrong today?
Besides communication is one of the big things. And I also feel that leaders need to understand that they need to live what they're demanding from people.
Yeah.
Because so often leaders will demand a certain standard,
Yeah.
but not model that standard. And leaders don't understand that their teams will never go any higher than they themselves have gone.
Yeah.
That's one thing. And then the other thing is that you don't have to be the smartest person on your team or in the room. You really do need to allow the talented people in your organization to flourish.
Yeah.
Because when you do, they're not going to take your job.
Yeah.
But they are going to shed a good light on you because you've given them the platform to really show what they can do.
Yeah, that's very good, and I agree with that. How does poor communication impact team performance, even when everything else looks fine?
A lot of ways. First of all, it can move the team in the wrong direction because a team member has heard a direction, but they do not follow the direction because they didn't actually understand what you meant when you gave the direction. So just the fact that there are clarity issues, I think that is the biggest thing. And also with teams that deal with client, and every team has clients, whether you never see a customer of the organization or not, you have clients. Some of those clients are internal, some of them are external, but your relationship with the client that you serve is very, very important. And sometimes teams disregard the clients in search of grabbing the goal, when the goal should always be to make sure that clients are served well. That needs to be the number one goal, to make sure, actually the number one goal of the team leader needs to make sure that the team members are well-resourced and served well. Because when team members are well-resourced and served well, then they will automatically serve clients well.
Yeah, you're right. I agree with you completely. So again, the next question is, what does a truly high-performing team looks like beyond the buzzword?
I think of a truly high-performing team as a puzzle.
Okay, I like that.
As a jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah, sure.
Every person has their place, but all of the places have to interlock properly.
You're right.
And when that happens, you have a truly high-performing team. I think that's the best way to say it, because there are going to be some people on that team who are very detail oriented,
Mm-hmm.
and they're going to keep those records. There are the people on that team who are going to want to move ahead and force the direction and almost push and pull the team
Mm-hmm.
along.
All right.
There are the people on that team who are the outgoing, more social
Mm-hmm.
people who will engage people outside of the team to come alongside the team.
Yeah.
And then there are the people on the team who are the caretakers, who are
Yeah.
going to make sure that everybody else on the team is okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
And those are the basic four types of functions on the team. And Jim Collins talks about getting everybody on the bus and in the right seats on the bus. And
Awesome.
when you have a team that when everybody who's supposed to be on the bus is there and all of those people are in the right seats on the bus,
Mm-hmm.
then it's
Awesome. Phenomenal. So where do most teams break down and why do leaders often miss it?
big. Leaders often miss breakdowns because they're not paying attention to the individuals on the team.
Yeah.
They're looking at performance, they're looking at expectations of upper management
Mm-hmm.
or clients, and they're not seeing where the cracks are in the foundational structure of the team. It's a culture issue.
Okay.
A team leader has to build a culture where team members feel heard.
Mm-hmm.
They feel that they can speak truth to power without being reprimanded or penalized in any way. And they also have to feel free to be who they are, not fit a mold. And very, very often, when people are forced into positions where they're not comfortable or they feel that they have to perform, then they feel forced, and forced people become very uncooperative because they're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I mean, think of it yourself. If your shoes are too tight,
Yeah.
you really can't walk well because
You're
your
right.
feet hurt.
You're right.
And if your position is not is too tight and forcing you, then
Yeah.
there's a problem.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. So what is the biggest blind spot leaders have about themselves?
How people see them.
Okay.
There, it's been popular for many, many years now, called a 360 assessment.
Okay.
But leaders don't really understand how they're being perceived by their people.
Mm.
I have a personal story. Unfortunately, I went through a really bad marital breakup pretty early in my career.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that I was doing just fine. I was going to work every day. I was conducting, at the time, I was a quality control director, so I had analysts working for me. And one day, my team called a meeting with me.
Mm-hmm.
And we went into the conference room, and they were like, "What is going on in your life? You have been absolutely miserable. You're horrible to deal with." I mean, they ran it down to me.
Okay.
And it was at that point that I had to tell them what was going on, because I didn't even really see how my personal life
Mm.
was affecting how I worked. And
What?
that happens life happens. As
Yes.
the kids say, life is lifing. Life
Mm.
happens. And when you don't realize how your life outside of your team affects how you relate to your team,
Mm.
that's very difficult. And when you don't realize how your team life affects your home life, because
Yeah.
you are a whole person, and
Yeah.
everywhere you go, you take all of you along.
Yeah.
Now, yes, there comes a point that you have to leave family madness at home or team difficulties at work,
Yeah.
but still, you're carrying a degree of it with you, and you need to understand how your behavior is affecting the team.
That's great. So what does it really mean to uplevel team leadership capacity?
It's mindset.
Okay.
That's the first thing, because as leaders, very often we feel that we have to carry everything.
Yeah.
And we really we can't, and we shouldn't,
Yeah.
because we're not good at everything.
Yeah.
And so your capacity is up leveled when you realize what you're not good at, and you get people on your team who are good at that thing.
Awesome.
Because that frees you to do what you're good at.
Yeah.
And it also allows your team to flourish in areas where you're not necessarily good.
Great.
It helps team members to feel proud to be on your team because you're allowing them the leeway, which also means that you have to know them well enough as a leader to know that you can trust them.
Yeah.
And people follow people who they like and who they trust. So they have to like and trust you, which means that you have to be open. You don't have to tell people your whole life story and everything that's going on in your life. But people need to feel that they know you well enough to want to trust you.
That's great. I agree completely. So you've taught public speaking. Why is this skill so critical for leaders today?
Because we are always speaking to the public. We are. Whether it's a job interview, whether it's a team meeting, whether it's a negotiation session. In fact, I love Chris Voss. He's one of my favorite authors. And he always maintains that everything is a negotiation. And it's true. It is absolutely true. Whether you're getting your car washed or you're at the supermarket or you're sitting down to negotiate a union contract or a purchase order, everything is a negotiation. So it's important to communicate. And the foundation of communication is not what you say and how you say it, but it's what you hear and what you do with what you've heard. And that you've heard what the person meant to say.
Yeah. Awesome. That's very good. So, what's one simple way someone can instantly improve how they communicate?
Listen, my mother always used to say to me, because I talk a lot, as you can see, that you have two ears and one mouth for a reason. And listen. And don't just listen to hear. Listen to understand what the other person means.
Yeah.
And then before you answer, think about what you've heard. And make sure that you understood what it was they were wanting to say.
Right.
I think that that is foundational, especially here in the United States. We don't listen. Everybody has to talk, and we have to learn to become comfortable with silence. I walk around a good part of my day mentally saying, Denise, shut up. Don't say anything. And just listen to what is said, absorb, then perhaps repeat it back to make sure in your own words that you understood what was being said, and then proceed to answer or to say what you were going to say, because what was said may really inform you and cause you to change what you heard.
Awesome. I really like that. So let's move to the next section. What major shift are you seeing in your industry right now?
Well, I am, when you speak about my industry in the coaching industry, one of the things that I'm seeing that I really like, and I guess it's because I've been a teacher, is group coaching.
Okay.
One-on-one coaching is excellent, especially for high-level executives. Group coaching allows those that are in the group, the coach group, to get different perspectives. And one of the dangerous things about our lives is that we only have our own perspective or the perspective of just a very small circle of people, but there are other ways of seeing things. So I love the trends. It's easier, significantly easier on an outgoing coach. Some coaches are more inner directed, and so group coaching may be a little difficult for them. They're much more comfortable with one-on-one. I happen to be an outgoing kind of person, so I'm okay. And obviously, I spent 17 years lecturing, and I love, I love a group of people. But it's not just that I want to talk to a lot of people, because that's not a good coach. If a coach is always talking, the coach shouldn't be talking a lot. The coach should just be asking questions and listening.
Yeah.
But you have a lot of different perspectives, and I think that is just phenomenal.
That's great. So you must have heard about AI. How has AI impacted your business and the strategy and DLM strategies?
I always tell people that there are three men in my life right now.
Okay.
There's Chat GPT,
Okay.
Claude,
Good
and there's
girl. Okay.
and now and then I've got Perplexity on the side. Okay.
Ooh. It's a whole lot.
Yeah. I I love it because it gives you a broad spectrum. Those platforms give you a broad spectrum of ideas that you may not have ever been exposed to.
You're right.
Now, you could never take exactly what they say. You have to look, you have to research, but at least they can give you a jumping off point for whatever it is that you're doing.
I agree with
Um,
you completely.
yeah.
That's good. Good to know that. So what is working well for you right now and what has been frustrating?
Frustrating for me personally
Mm-hmm.
has been, and I've caused my own frustration,
Mm-hmm.
getting clients. And
Okay.
one of the best ways to get clients is to get out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
I live in New York City,
Mm-hmm.
and so and I'm a little over 35. Not
I
much,
know.
just
That's a young girl, a little girl, 18-year-old.
and I got comfortable not getting out of the house
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of the pandemic, and then dealing with New York winters. We had a particularly severe winter here this year, and getting around physically was challenging for me.
Yeah.
Um, but for me, that has been my issue, and I have actually, since we've hit spring now, I'm getting out a lot more. So that that has been a really good thing for me. And then the other thing is, and a lot of coaches have this problem,
Mm.
they do not charge enough for what they can do.
Yes.
And when you don't charge enough, no matter how good you are at what you do, people will not trust you,
Yeah.
which is, it took a while for me to really understand that it you have to understand what your worth is. And
Yeah.
I've had dozens of people tell me, with your experience and your number of years and all of that. So for me, that has been my challenge. And so I have begun to really rethink what my prices are and what I'm doing, because I have a lot of great things. And then you have to position them to the right market,
Yeah.
because sometimes you're positioning things to people who really cannot afford what you want to do.
You're right.
Part of my issue is that so often the people who need it most can afford it least.
Mm.
And so I have, with women, what I call the manicure test.
Okay.
If I look at your hands and they are always professionally manicured,
Mm-hmm.
then you have made a choice about where you want to invest your money.
You're right.
And if you choose to invest your money on your hands, your beauty, your face, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
that's okay.
That's
That's your
okay.
choice.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not my customer, because you have to really want to grow. And
Yeah.
if you're not wanting to invest in growth, because when you look at what a regular manicure costs
Mm-hmm.
here in the city, that's quite a bit of money.
Yeah.
And you can take that and you can devote all of it or even half of it to growing yourself.
You're right.
And people have to decide that they want to grow.
That's fine. Okay. So, how do you, what, is there any, because you mentioned clients now, you're not having enough clients. Is there any metrics you're focused in improving, make sure you get more clients?
Well, yes. One of the things that I've done is I had to niche down.
Okay.
And it's very counterintuitive, but the smaller your niche, the more likely you are to reach your clients, which
All
is
right.
why I have made this emphasis on women over 45 and transitions,
Okay.
because I have transitioned four major times in my life, and three of those times have been when I was over 45 years old.
Okay.
And so that is my primary niche now. I also like to reach out to young minorities going into the workplace,
Okay.
and they're the first people in their families to go into the corporate marketplace,
Okay.
because that was who I was 52 years ago.
Okay.
I was going in as a corporate leader,
Mm-hmm.
and I must tell you honestly, back then I was 23, 24 years, no,
Wow.
23 years old. Um, for the first probably 6 months, I would go to work every day. I would do my job. I would go home, throw myself across the bed, and cry like a baby because of how I was treated.
Yeah.
And it's okay, because I had a mother who stood there and said, and a father, both my parents were like, "Girl, you can do this. Stop that crying, get up."
Yeah. Good.
You
Great.
know, and that's what kept me going back until I realized that I could do it.
Yeah.
But if I can help to mentor some of those young people, I'm happy to do it, because I totally get it.
Okay.
Any strange environment, it's very difficult.
Okay. Awesome. So well, let's go to the next question. Where do you want DLM strategy to be in the next 1 year?
In the next 1 year,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things I would like to do is I've developed a women's coaching program entitled R4,
Okay.
which stands for Reset, Reimagine, Relaunch, and Rise. And then there's something else that I've added to it since I developed that program, and that's Realign, because
Okay.
alignment is very important.
Yes.
And I want to be running 4 cohorts a year of women in R4.
Mm-hmm.
And I also, because I am a professional public speaker, I
Yeah.
made my first professional presentation in 1975. So, and I was on the Corporate Speakers Bureau. So again, I was trained to do
Yeah.
public speaking. And as part of the Maxwell team, I also have a public speaking coach. And people uh, really look at me and they go, "You need a coach?" Yes,
Yeah.
yes, because we can always learn, and there are
Absolutely.
things that he has taught me.
Yeah.
So absolutely, and I want to begin speaking at groups and organizations. And I would love to be able to speak at least one group a month.
Awesome. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you said you want to mentor women 40 and above, and you
Well,
want to
45 and
45 and
above.
above. Okay. And you want to uh, mentor groups and all that. So is there any specific KPIs you're keeping in making sure you're in the right direction on that?
I have accountability partners. I'm not a coach who doesn't have a coach.
Okay. Awesome. That's good.
Okay. Number one, if you're a coach who doesn't have a coach, then you don't have any idea of what it means, what it's like on the other side of you. And so I am blessed to have a coach. And I also have accountability partners that I have for different parts of my life. I have one friend.
Hmm.
Um, I love her dearly. I call her the little general, because I happen to be very tall, and
Okay.
she's tiny.
Okay.
And but she calls me every week and asks me, "Okay, so what have you done with this? And what have you done with that?
Great.
And how are you doing this? And how are you doing that?" And she encourages me. And I have also other people in my life who encourage me, because I tend to like to have a lot of things going on at one time,
Mm.
which is sometimes good and sometimes honestly not
Yeah.
so good. So I have people who I'm accountable for. I'm in the process of I'm a person of faith,
Hmm.
and for my women in the R4 community, I'm in the process of writing a 90-day devotional for them.
Oh,
And
it's fun.
and that's a tremendous amount of work.
I know.
But and so I have people keeping me accountable on what I'm accomplishing with that. as well as how many times I'm getting out and meeting new customers and new people. One of the things that I must say is that people hire you based on relationships.
Mm.
And so thankfully, I am naturally a connector.
Okay.
And so I love connecting with people.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Good.
And so I need to be going out and I need to be building those relationships. And so that's what I'm doing. So I have set myself a goal of reaching out and doing different things several times a month and of just letting people know what I'm doing. I also, for the people who are here and are on LinkedIn, I invite you to connect with me.
I will.
I have a LinkedIn
I have
newsletter.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes. And my LinkedIn newsletter is actually having her 1 year anniversary. It's for women,
Okay.
and it's called Her Leadership Matters.
All right.
And May will be our first anniversary edition.
That's
We
great.
started in May of last year.
Awesome. That's very good. So, if you had the magic one to fix just one thing in your company that is holding you down or slowing you down, holding you back or slowing you down, what would that one thing be?
Hmm. Hmm. I think the one thing would be I'd like to split myself into about 3 different people so that I could move around a lot
A
more.
lot more. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, because the thing is that you need to do work to do the work. And
Yeah.
so if I'm going out, I'm not at home, I'm not researching, I'm not writing,
Mm-hmm.
and I've tried it with not getting insufficient sleep.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem. In fact, that's probably the biggest thing. I would probably get more sleep. Who is it? Stephen Covey talks about this, about sharpening your saw.
Yeah, remember.
And so often we work and work and work and work
Yeah.
when we need to take time to sharpen our saw. And one of the best ways to sharpen your saw is sleep,
Yeah.
believe it or not.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
there
that's,
are a couple of things. You asked for
yeah.
one thing, I
No,
gave.
definitely. I know that. I can see that. So, one thing again I'm going to ask you is, what does unlocking a team full potential really means?
When you unlock a team's full
Full.
potential, it means
Correct.
that every person on that team is invested in the success of the team,
Mm.
feels needed
Awesome.
by the team to help do what the team is doing and to help reach the goal,
Mm-hmm.
and that everyone is pushing in the same direction.
Awesome.
When you have those 3 things, your team's potential is totally unlocked. When everybody understands the goal,
Mm-hmm.
and then those 3 things are in place, your team will absolutely skyrocket.
Awesome. That's very good. If listeners take just one thing from this conversation, what should that be?
As a leader,
Mm-hmm.
listening to your team members and getting to know them.
Okay.
Saying less, listening more.
Awesome. That's very good. Denise, so where can people connect with you or learn more about your work?
They can learn more about my work at my website, which is www.dlmstrategies, IES, strategies, ltd.com. They can connect with me on LinkedIn at my name, Denise L. Miller.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also on Facebook as Denise Lindell, Lyndelle.
Awesome.
I'm on YouTube
Oh, okay.
as Leadership Lady Live. No spaces, just all together, Leadership Lady Live.
Okay.
And have I left out anything? Yes. And I'm on Facebook as Denise L. Miller.
All right, awesome. We're
Yes.
definitely going to put that in our description box by the time we publish the video. So, Dennis, it's really been an eye-opening and a very good time, well spent with you. And like I said earlier, I see you have really drawn a lot from the nuggets you drop here and there about your experience and in leadership. So Denise, thank you very much. And we're grateful to feature you in our podcast. Thank you, Denise.
Thank you, Phoebe. And I am so grateful that you invited me and that you've had me here. Take care.
All right, ma'am. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye bye.